This conference will now be recorded.
Get it going, call the meeting to order. Anybody here or online would like to introduce themselves? Not seeing anybody online, and we pretty much know everybody in the room. Move on to the next, if there's any public comment, speak now or forever, hold your peace, or at least till the next meeting. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3, approval of the September 18th, 2024 meeting minutes.
Motion approved.
Got a motion and a second. Thank you very much, Nicole. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda, regional air quality updates. Tom? Or,
Jeff Thompson, he's online.
okay, I think there is a recording back
Not that I know
there.
of.
Okay,
And I,
okay. So we'll just move on from that one. Now we're on to our presentation. We have a presentation for the I-25 and Mulberry Interchange project. Johnny and
Gina, is Gina online or here?
it looks like it.
I think thought she was coming.
I had no idea.
She said she would be here. Can I-
We're we'll reach out to her.
So I'll start it since Gina's not here. I'm with Benish Engineering, working as a consultant for Gina and Pete on the project, and basically working towards some kind of solution on 14 and 25. They hired us about, I'd say 6 months ago, and we've been working through all the processes and everything. But one of the number one things we wanted to do is make sure we have a pretty broad stakeholder outreach, and who better than all the folks that represent the North Front Range sitting here, the technical people that will advise their council members, I think, in the future. So we wanted to come tonight. We have some today, and we have some questions, but I wanted to sort of walk through just what we're doing. It's still a priority for the North Front Range. We know that. It's still, I think, was the number one project in the last round of 10-year plan projects they put together. So we wanted to make sure that we stayed on top of it and came and talked to you guys. So we'll go ahead and start. I'll just go through a presentation. Please don't hesitate to stop and say, hey, I got a question on that, because I'm going to run through this data pretty quick so I can get to the questions. And this is my first time with this presentation, so you guys are like my first group.
we're the guinea pigs.
Not guinea pigs, first group, most importantly. And I won't say that to everybody, I promise. Go ahead, next slide. So everybody knows where I-25 and 14 Mulberry is. That project has been, was taken out of segment 8 from the last project because of financial issues. It was included at first, and then the past RTD couldn't find the funding to get it all included. So they pulled it. But we know it's an important I think Gene's coming right now. It's an important interchange for northern Colorado, for Collins and everybody entering.
There she
Gina?
is. There she is. Hello.
And they put an RFP out and selected Benish to sort of go through the design process. It's a major corridor, right? 14 is growing to the east, going into Fort Collins. There's a lot of diversity in this area. There's low to moderate income, there's EJ, disproportionately impacted communities, and then there's businesses on the bottom half. You guys know the area pretty well. Our project, we're studying past the slide a little bit, but on the west side, we're gonna look at that intersection with, what is that? That was green something.
Greenfields.
Greenfields. I knew it was green something. Greenfields, that's gonna be part of it. We're studying traffic all the way to Trail Ridge, is it Timberline, all the way to where the property is now.
Are you going as far east as County Road 5? Or west side? East?
West now.
No,
Oh,
there's a lot of studies from CDOT right now and there's a safety study and there's other things going on to the east of us.
That safety study that he's discussing, that should be wrapped up before Thanksgiving.
And it goes all the way through Alts to County Road 43 from Larimer County Road 5.
Okay.
So it's a big stretch.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of stuff happening on 14 in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
All top pulled me over and told me all about it.
Yeah, be careful at all. Makes sense. Proposed improvements, based on sort of the RFP and, working with CDOT is, we know it's an unconventional, operations there. There was one, loop already removed for safety purposes at the weave locations. There's flooding concerns. There's Cooper Slough over here on the left, top left. And all this stuff in the bottom down here is all in a floodplain, FEMA floodplain. Aging infrastructure, we all know it's pretty old. It was 69, something like that it was built, so it's getting up there. Traffic growth and regional growth, we talked about the population growth to the north and to the east. And then safety for multimodal issues. There's been a couple fatalities between the hotel and American Furniture. People just run across that, and I don't know if they've been out there. I was out there taking photos at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was probably stupid, but I wanted to get photos with the people with it, and it was, and there was people running across that traffic, and I'm like,
The gas station.
yeah, I'm like, this is like crazy. I'm like, close your eyes, but there's a lot of pedestrian movement out here, and there's a lot of pedestrian moving east and west too. There's a Mulberry plan that was, I think, passed not too long ago in Fort Collins. They finished it, and we're using that as a sort of guidance for Fort Collins. Gina meets with Fort Collins quite a bit, and we're trying to get another meeting set up with the city of Fort Collins, city manager.
Yeah, their city manager.
To walk through some of the issues with them too, major stakeholder.
I guess one other thing to mention about, before we move on the project overview is, I think a common misconception is everybody looks at this as an I-25 project, whereas I think really this is more of a State Highway 14 project. I think if you can kind of shift your thought process to thinking it really is more about 14, you start to realize more of the safety impacts that this project's going to have, more of the flooding issues that this project experiences, some of that aging infrastructure as well, but if you can think of it less of another I-25 project, I don't mean say another, but in a sense I do, because that is kind of a feeling right now with everybody being tired of I-25. It really truly is a State Highway 14 project. As you notice, we actually are evaluating more of 14 than we are 25. Our limits extend longer than 14.
And I don't know if you guys know, but there's a lot of flooding right there on the frontage, northwest corner frontage road that floods. I mean, it flooded twice this year already. CDOT's been experiencing more flooding in the area. We're trying to evaluate, and we've been looking at through the last 6 months, is it local flooding or is it floodplain flooding? We all know if the 100-year or 50-year hits that floodplain, 14's overtopped and a lot of things are flooded, but we're finding that a lot of that is local drainage in that area that we're gonna have to fix. But looking at the floodplain and the local drainage together, maybe we can combine it through a protect grant or some other way by working with Larimer County and Fort Collins. There's a lot of studies going on this reach right now, so we'll be tied into that with Larimer and Fort Collins. And then we also have the other drainage down there in the bottom. Losing what it is.
Box
Box
Elder.
Elder.
Box Elder, yeah. God, I was in my mind.
It's okay, you're doing great, Johnny.
I told him this is our first shot at this. Right, anything else you want to add on this project overview? Okay, let's go to the next slide. So everybody knows about the EIS that was signed, the EIS was signed in December of 2000 and I think, or January of 2011. This is what's in the plan as an alternative that was selected at this location. Works, but you're looking at a very, very expensive improvement there. Not saying that that's not going to be the solution. There's a lot of those things with the carpool up there on the top right, connection to transport, with the connections of the frontage roads, and then also the connection. You can see there's we call it a cutover bridge just to the west there that connects the frontage road, so you can remove the full movements at 14 there. We are going to evaluate this. This is why they hired us. We're doing a value planning process. It's the beginning of a VE. VE study, something that's already been designed, where value planning, you start basically with nothing. We know we have an alternative. There's actually another one too with the divergent diamond. But we want to see if back when they studied this in 2011 and then also 2015, is this the right solution? Is there something different we got to do for today and moving into 2050? This might be the outcome, but we do not want to close our minds. Is there something we need to do different? Obviously, it's the alternative. We're going to be looking at options because we do not want to get into the record of decision. We're not out there looking for other alternatives to go into the EIS, but how can we improve this with options that maybe improve the whole intersection for all the goals and objectives for the project? Next, any questions on this?
So you mentioned, this is just from record of decision, I think Army Corps, this is something that's a legal document that you don't want to mess with, is that what you're saying?
Well, as long as we stay within the framework of the alternatives and what was selected, we can optimize anything that's in the EIS.
Okay.
We do not want to throw new alternatives out there. It is just optimizing, staying within the footprint, staying within the parameters of the EIS, and evaluating options to improve this operation.
That makes sense. Thank you.
So next, when you think about this intersection, standard diamond with roundabouts, partial clover leaves. When we looked at this, when we were putting a proposal in, we thought to ourselves, what is the major movement? And that left northbound exits for east and westbound on I-25, in the future, it has to have triple lefts. So you're looking at 3,500 cars peak hour, and that's a lot of lefts. Well, how do you get people to move with that? How do you move people across an interchange that has that many movements and that much traffic? So when you start thinking about this, does a divergent diamond work? Does a single point urban intersection work? And then we looked at, if we leave the partial clover leaf, the northbound to westbound, leave that in and eliminate all those major lefts up there and still keep the diamond configuration, but leave that loop rep north to west in place. Going to be part of the evaluations. And I tell you, the value planning process, we have to have 100 ideas, or the value planning facilitator will not let us leave the room. So there are going to be a lot of things thrown at the wall. There's going to be a lot of things discussed. There's a lot of people in the room. There's going to be about 15 subject matter experts and CDOT employees. We know it's got to be done, but what does it look like? That's basically what we're doing. When we come up with that solution and we'll evaluate through the value planning process, we'll come to the table with probably 3 to 4 alternative options that we'll bring to the table, evaluate, and then put costs and operational analysis to it. Next. So project goals: enhance safety, equitable transportation. We really want to look at the different types of modes that are going to be out there working. There's a very strong bike community out there on this corridor and out in this area. So there's a bike community along Mulberry. There's really not a transit connection yet, But when you really start thinking about this in terms of equitable transportation, if your workforce and everybody that's working in Fort Collins is living on the outskirts on, let's say, East 14 or North I-25, you need a central location or ability to get people from living to the work locations, right? So work centers. So this is gonna be looking at that. Obviously, it'll be a bridge replacement, improving services. I-25, I mean, drive through there, and you drive over there now, it's pretty bad. Because they couldn't really do much in there because of the height of the bridge. You have to keep that elevation differences, so they stopped the paving and then started it on the backside of it. So we'll be working on that. Floodplain issues, as we talked about. Looking at electrification can we find some places for electrification? I know that CDOT has an I-25 and an electrification plan. We'll be working through that process and then identifying the needs for that. And then there's, like I said, you guys are the first of the stakeholders. There's, I don't know how many communities are represented here, but 11 or 12 in the room today, which will be informing your elected officials from the Norfolk Range that will help advance the project and keep people up to date. Things will probably be coming back to you guys. It would be, I'm sure CDOT has to do STIP and TIP amendments and everything else, so you at least understand what's being done and why. One of the things that's going to be challenging is they currently in the 10-year plan, there's 25 million in the out years. I think it is 25 or 27, something like that, in the out years. And one of the tasks that Gina and Pete have asked us is, we want to do something. We just don't want to put a design on the shelf and just sit there for 30 years. So looking at securing funding, even if it's securing the flood funding, securing a bike improvement funding, or if we can secure the whole funding for the corridor once we get the idea, the option out there, is working through the grant process to try to get this funded. That's where the Norfolk Range can come in for support letters, which will start here. Support letters to help us get that done, but we have built a narrative, we have built a funding strategy. Like I've been pushing not only federal, but safety, resurfacing, bridge. We put it all together from state to local to federal, and we'll be putting those packages together once we understand what we're trying to build.
I guess big thing here, and that you're touching on is, these are our project goals, but I'd like to challenge this group with maybe finding another goal you would like this project to meet, that we could help maybe support, tie into the project. I have a lot of goals, so it might already be in there, but if there's something that you think that we're missing, please let us know. That's part of also our outreach as well.
Next slide.
I have a thought on that. What about environmentally? I know when we looked at 392, one of our considerations for that project was wildlife. We had a lot of strikes with wildlife. I don't know if this corridor has that same.
Not as much right here, more out to the east, and
Except
then,
for the two-legged wildlife, yeah.
yeah, except for it's more the pedestrian, honestly, it is the pedestrian that actually. And we just had a fatal a month ago, right
I
here.
think there's been 2 or 3 in the last year.
Since I've gone out to RFP, I think we've had 3 fatals of people crossing
Yeah,
14.
we see them all the time, especially rush hour. It's insane.
But yeah, great thought.
I think making sure we can get pedestrians across the bridge too, because we have the mobile home park and others on the east side of I-25 that want to come to Fort Collins. And then as far as the drainage issues, we haven't been with floodplain. But like you said, the real challenge is probably going to be the local drainage. We've looked at that for years in the county. And the problem is you have all this water that backs up north of Mulberry, and we don't have a legal conveyance for that to go through the industrial park to the south until it hits Lake Canal. So.
Yeah, that's gonna be one of the things that I think is, that we wanna think about, Gina and Pete and I and the team have talked about is, do you really wanna put all those pedestrians right where all the traffic, because we know that traffic, moving vehicles and pedestrians don't play well no matter where they're at. Is there an option for a ped bridge? Is there an option to connect the Box Elder pedestrian and the Mulberry pedestrian better, more efficiently in removing peds away from that traffic? That's something I think we want to look at. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, big thing is, you're always gonna have your aggressive cyclists, but you don't always necessarily design for that. I think what helped me was, I have a friend, she's a nurse, so totally out of this realm, but she has kids. And she was like, why are we always on the street? What if we had like a separate bike path or something separate? I feel so much safer and I take my kids on it. And it's Box Elder. I know they're trying to build a trail. And so, yes, we are looking at the interchange area and we will cross people, but maybe we widen our scope a little bit more and consider connecting trails. And maybe that's part of a goal as well.
and that could be a separate funding package, right?
Yep.
You can even phase that out and do it separately if you don't have the interchange to get that pedestrian improvements right away.
And one other thing to keep in mind too, and this won't be on CDOT, but might be a coordination thing, is that property on the northeast corner of Mulberry and I-25, that big field. One of the major challenges of developing that parcel is drainage. There's only a little culvert that goes underneath underneath 14. So
Say northeast or northwest?
northeast.
This is where the parking right.
Yeah, drainage needs to go across 14th in the south. More than likely, it could go east along 14, but, you know.
Gotta get in the Box Elder something. It's all going to Box Elder or the Cooper Slough.
But looking at, properly sizing a crossing through there would be.
Have you been in touch with that developer in that? Wow.
They actually recently reached out. They're looking for, what was it, some language of the agreement. They have not submitted, at least that we are aware of, so we just discussed this week, any of their plans or specs or anything to the city of Fort Collins yet.
Has that been annexed? No? Is that annexed yet?
They had a traffic control, when I was working at Fort Collins, they had a roundabout and they did a traffic study for it. It wasn't an official submittal yet, but they had.
It's annexed? Is that?
It's not annexed yet, no, they were doing it in anticipation of annexation.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
They wanted to know the language of what our agreement will be with them, but per our IGA, they need to submit everything to City of Fort Collins first, before everybody starts moving.
Yeah, with the cities with 1041 process, they're gonna have to go through that process with the city.
Well, the development, they got the development process, which is a
Through
little
the
bit,
development.
yeah, which is a little different than the.
Okay.
But
But no, I haven't seen it. I haven't. I did reach out to Tim, I don't think he's
Yeah.
seen
Tim was on all of it too, he was on all of it. and
it.
Tyler
He
had
has
it.
stuff from years ago, but
Yeah.
nothing, there's nothing recent.
They're a key player too because of the relocation of the frontage road.
And that roundabout that they want, and there's some, it would be helpful for you to see that sooner than later, I guess.
Yes.
Do you know the name of the developer?
Moakler,
Top of your head?
Moakler, I think.
Moakler?
I think so.
I can email Tyler and see if we can get that. It might be dated at this point, but the layout that they have.
Because I don't know what, John might have picked that up from them, what they had. Because John got a lot of the developments in the
that?
area, and I'll just check with them to make
Okay.
sure he has that.
And James was in all those meetings as well, James.
Yeah. James definitely has a breadth of knowledge on this.
Yeah.
Get that guy's name too. One who's gonna be reaching out.
So when she's doing that, is there any other, like, ideas? Wildlife, make sure we take care of ped, drainage at the McClure, I'll call the property on the northeast corner. Anything else that you guys think about out there?
Johnny, question for you guys. I know you guys are gonna look into transit, but specifically, have you talked to CDOT DTR with regard to Mustang to see if a mobility hub option would be appropriate with that high level of traffic you guys are expecting? I don't know how the numbers are gonna look for the mobility hubs because they're just now opening.
When I brought that up, I was told the Mulberry is our location. Not Mulberry, Harmony, because they already got their stop at Harmony.
But you have to get off the interstate, right?
I'm not saying that we won't
Or
talk
they-
about it,
Or
but
are they
it'll-
doing something else?
that's something I wrote it down, throw it on the wall. That's one of those things that we want to hear.
If we have a lot of disadvantaged communities there, people who rely on transit and such, I feel like it would be worth looking into. I know DTR is doing a transit connection study. I don't have any details other than I know they're doing that. I don't know where they're at with it. I don't know when it's coming out. So I guess that would just,
It may be helpful too, especially if, I know some of the local communities now are looking at the rail and having ties to that rail. That could be another potential, hey, this is a stop that could get you eventually to that rail.
if you guys are thinking about doing some sort of head underpass or bridge or something along the sort, if there was a center loading platform that connected to, it would make sense. I know they're expensive, but if you're redoing the whole interchange, it might be worth looking into. I don't know what DTR's thoughts on that would be though.
Transport operates out to I-25 and 14. So they-
Transport does?
Yeah, they
Yeah,
route.
that's gonna be a key tie for us is transport. That's one of our stakeholders.
Right.
We gotta do.
Transport's a big one. Isn't there another one that comes through on 14?
Does transport go along I-25?
The Pioneer Express doesn't go through 14.
It doesn't? Okay.
So it doesn't, it's not going on the interstate.
It's not,
Okay.
not currently, but.
We have quite a demand too for Wellington area up to Wyoming, mainly for the VA hospital. They did a feasibility study on that. It's a solid route, so this could be part of that recommendation.
And that was part of, they presented that at the North Front Range.
Yes, there's just no funding for it, and CETA doesn't have any funding for busting route expansion at this time. From what I understand, I don't work at DTR. So I think they would be looking for a local servicer for that, but pass-through dollars are always a thing for us too, so.
And I think one of the things that we really gotta do is connect transport tight to this, because with the parking ride or whatever we put in there, that operational analysis is gonna be important with transport. And they were interested, they did, I mean, the Mulberry Plan has it too.
Someone might be on from transport.
Yeah, Josh.
Just one.
Josh, you on?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm here.
The Mulberry Plan that you guys have, that you guys sort of were part of that Mulberry Plan, you have a connecting it to the east side of 25 on the Mulberry Plan transport, don't you? Do you remember?
I don't think I was involved with the Mulberry plan. Sorry.
All right, well, that's definitely something we'll tie in.
It was Steve Shopler, who's their attorney, yes. Yep, that's who has been reaching out recently.
And that's who James was meeting with.
So, one of the questions I wanted to ask, do you perceive driving near and through the 25 interchange dangerous?
Yes.
The current configuration? If yes, what would make traveling in the interchange? feel a
Getting
little safer?
southbound on I-25 with the amount of semis who drive obviously in the right lane, and they're trying to exit onto Prospect at the same time, it is so dangerous. I see near misses I've almost been in one. And truck drivers just get pissed. They don't even look for people onboarding. They're just exiting. It's just, I don't know if they
So
do.
the entrance and the exit, the entrance of Mulberry and the exit of Prospect?
Yeah,
Do you think they're too close,
yes,
or?
very much so.
Okay.
I don't even know how you would fix that, to be honest.
Well, it's
Unless you
funny,
did
we
it
were doing
over.
a weave analysis
Yeah.
between Prospect and,
It is very dangerous going southbound. People trying to, mainly semis trying to exit, there's a very bad point of collision.
Yep.
But I feel northbound getting on to 14 is, I feel like that's also a point where you're having to look over your shoulder to see if anyone's coming. You're in
That Clover.
that right only lane to go to the gas station and McDonald's and all that. But during rush hour, it's pretty bad. Every other time, it's usually okay.
so northwest, the
movement I hate the most is south to west,
North to east.
where you're coming off I-25 headed west, you're in that lane that's actually, I think, the through lane there, but it turns into the right lane and there's an entrance right there.
Oh, yeah, so you're talking about where it goes to tractor supply,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
It is so
Coming off I-25 and trying to merge into traffic right there.
And there's a ton of stock trailers because of the livestock, Centennial Livestock Auction House.
Yeah.
So we have a ton of livestock trailers who are very confused navigating that.
I would say
Tight.
the frontage road, the interstate frontage road on the east side, there've been a number of fatalities of that. I know in, I think 1 year we had 3 fatalities in another 3 months or something like that. That intersection's rough.
So east side frontage road where?
The interstate frontage road on just on the east side
Can you pop up the,
by the Maverick gas station.
Yeah.
That one, the Cloverleaf is on one side. I think there's a lot of pedestrian activity going back and forth
Yeah.
between the gas station and the mobile home park there.
can you pop up that slide on the map that we had? Sure. I think it's slide 2. Yeah, slide 2. You pop that up a little bit for me. So,
Right on the east side there, that first intersection,
Yeah.
east of the,
Turning left, turning north.
I think most of the collisions are vehicles going straight eastbound through the intersection and turning left vehicles going into where like the Maverick gas station is. I think that's the primary crash pattern.
So heading west, turning in.
I think it's the westbound left
Yeah.
versus the
Yeah.
eastbound through. That's what I recall being one of the primary crash.
They redid that intersection in the past 2 years with the light
Yeah.
They did protect it.
and changed a bit of the entrance to the mobile home park and everything too. So it was, were these crashes before?
So
or after
they
this?
did some protective glass to try to help. I don't know, it would be good to look at when that change happened and what's happened since.
Yeah.
With the crash. I know the timing of that one's very sensitive. It was when they made those changes, it was pretty impactful to the folks in the mobile home park and that frontage road, but there's just a lot of pedestrian activity back and forth between those two as well.
Well, that's helpful.
all right, those are good.
And then Hartford Homes is doing that big Bloom subdivision west of your project area.
Yeah, just west of the
Yeah,
slough
they've
there.
got new improvements at that intersection, signal, turn lanes, they're not quite done yet, but, and from what I'm seeing, that's gonna be big, and you might know more about what's happening there in terms of size, but the only issue there is they're all gonna bring a lot more traffic into the interchange for sure, but they are a mile-ish west of the old interchange.
I don't even know if they're a full mile.
I think it is a full mile.
Are they able to get a
It's off-
connection over to
It's on
Vine?
Greenfields.
They're supposed to go out to Vine, I would think.
I think
That's a conversation with the railroad.
Yeah, if they can connect to Vine, it actually, from a traffic perspective, gets a lot better because you can dissipate. Right now, all of that traffic comes in on Timberline, which is a huge problem, but if they can get that connection all the way through, it helps to sort of dissipate some
Oh,
of
that's
that.
right, they do that across the railroad.
Yeah,
They'll have more trouble than I do.
But then there's, I haven't been up to speed on that property in particular, but I know that there was supposed to be residential on the west side of Greenfields, and then on the east side was Peakview, where they had, I think, 4 or 5 different, big box development lots.
Yeah, top of the slough there.
Yeah,
is that a county development?
I think it's being annexed.
Has that development, it's north of the slough, is it capturing a bunch of the floodplain, like the waters that are going into
No.
the slough?
It's, I mean, the slough goes right along the side of the property, and they have to design their lots.
Cooper Slough is the end of the, so right at,
Like a-
right where that slough is, just to right, to the, probably where that white line is, I think that's where their property ends, the development.
I was just thinking some of the capture detention could happen more upstream as development's coming in or something's happening currently
Well,
to relieve the area.
greenfields right here. And then these lots right here, 1, 2, 3,
Oh.
4, 5. Those were all designed to be big box. I think Cabela's was looking at going in, and
Oh,
King Supers was looking at it, so.
that'd be super handy.
King Supers would be really nice in that area. We vote yes.
All right, anything else? I mean, those are good things that we have down.
Have you, from a floodplain perspective, we have the floodplain map through here, but I know the risk map is coming through. Have you guys looked at if there are any changes specific to risk map
That's
versus the?
That's what they're doing now. Yeah, they're evaluating, they're working with the Laramie County folks with the Lomer and trying to figure out, what does this look like? What is the risk map? What does this all do? They're just in that beginning phases of collecting existing data before we go too far into it. We have to remember that this project, and Gina and I are probably the ones that are pushing this harder than anybody.
We are.
I would agree.
With thinking outside of the box for resiliency, we know that if that floods, 14 is gonna top, and it's gonna do damage, and it's gonna flood out those properties. So looking at working with Laramie County for Collins, they'll have to be the ones that go after the Protect Grant. CDOT can't. CDOT can participate if it saves, if they can show a cost benefit to saving the road during those floodplain, in that floodplain, they can participate in it, because if that floods, no matter what we do for local drainage, that north corner is gonna be underwater, right? And then everything to the south. So Gina and I have been really pushing, studying this, and we'll work on it and we'll push it through, but at the end of the day, it's gotta be a partnership between Larimer and Fort Collins. And we're willing to write the grants, we're willing to do whatever it takes to get that done, but that could be an early out package that we get out while we're in the design phases till trying to find money for the interchange. And you're looking at 60 to 120 million dollars in this area, right? So finding that kind of money is challenge.
It's a goal.
You know, it's like, we're gonna find it. I'm gonna put my mind to it, we're gonna get it.
So the highway acts like a big dam, really. And, the initial thought is we'll open it up, but then you're causing impacts to people in the
Everything down.
downstream.
Yeah, well, trying to get it through the, see this irrigation ditch that runs on the west, north, southwest side? Trying to get something maybe in, because right now it's a 36-inch pipe.
Yeah.
That's all it is. That carries the Cooper Slough.
Oh, well,
Yeah, so what we gotta try to do is work on a plan, of how do we get it from there down to this thing so it gets into the river and to the box elder drainage, right? So it's, because everything past that's already in the floodplain, everything in Fort Collins is already deemed. And Laramie County said don't build in the area, right? So trying to get it through that so it doesn't flood, that's some options, right? How do we do that? I don't know. That's what the hydraulics engineers do, right? Try to help you figure that stuff out. And Muller's our hydraulics engineer. Sarah Johnson is our hydraulics and person for the floodplain. And she's pretty darn good.
Has there been any connection with our strategic trails plan that's currently ongoing as far as trying to get that regional trail across?
We did just bring that up this week. Spencer Smith was getting me the contact information for that, I believe.
And Jerome, you're doing your update for the regional.
Yeah.
For that.
Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Yes. Perfect, yes.
Yep. And that's why we hit you guys first, because we knew you guys would have a lot of things that we might
And
have not thought about or had contact with.
can you go to that next slide and show your concept?
Yeah,
Yeah.
In the study.
this is from the EIS.
Stay there for the EIS.
Outstanding.
I'm just gonna let you know, one of the things that I'm gonna push is, I do not like the right in, right out that close to the interchange.
No.
So
I agree with you.
we gotta try to figure out, how do we push that out? How do we make that movement a little better? Does Greenfield become the exit for the frontage road? Do we need the right in, right out there? That'll just be a huge conflict and weave point at that tag of a interval from the ramps. I don't know if there's anything we can do, but that's why they hired us. We're gonna throw some mud on the wall.
Yeah, the number of accesses and the proximity of all the accesses along there is going on there, so. Combining some of those
It's
are.
like our very own Colorado Boulevard.
Yeah, easy for me to say.
Denver.
Not having barriers right now. Is this gonna get annexed into Fort Collins sometime soon? That their conversation, I mean, that's
The
happening.
whole corridor is
Yeah.
supposed to be annexed.
Do you know how
but
far
they-
that annexation goes to go?
I do.
It'll go out,
Mainly for
it'll
your
go to the
floodplain
east.
stuff, it'd be good to work with whatever jurisdiction is gonna be there when you get to the finish line.
Oh, so they're gonna be right at the table with us, Fort Collins and
And
Larimer.
I think Fort Collins closed it to make it an enclave, and there was supposed to be what was it, 5 or 10-year plan for annexation?
And it's phased
But then-
development.
Yeah, but then
They'll
then
come
the-
in chunks.
the costs for annexation is so high that Fort Collins is kind of like taking.
walking
step
slowly
back.
away and looking at.
Yes. But eventually it'll be annexed.
You don't wanna keep it? Everyone's dead nodded. We're further east.
Yeah, you are further east for sure. I think the one thing in looking at this picture, I wanna zoom out a little bit further. But I'm just like, there's too many buildings in the way to, especially on the west side, to try to go and connect into what Bloom has built.
Vine though, it's Vine and
Well,
I think that network will be there. The greenfields will connect all the way through eventually, then Vine, we've got a really good connected network in there.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about going up north of Vine, because Vine is somewhat restricted. I don't go out that way very often, but just in the last 5 years, I've been driving 14. And I'm seeing a noticeable change in the traffic on 14 coming westbound from Alt. It's just increasing because people are avoiding 34 and 392.
Well, the Prospect being 2 lanes,
Yeah,
or, didn't realize, but Prospect being 2 lanes is part of the problem, because that capacity of Prospect is so limited with the 2-lane section that it pushes it to.
Yeah.
Is there a plan for that?
There is a plan, there's no money.
There's always a good plan. It's always the financial side of the house that gets you in trouble. And one of the things that I've learned being an engineer working for the state and being a private engineer working for locals and then being on city council, it's helped me better understand how cities work. You know, being a region director, I get to go push them around a little bit and say, this is what we're gonna do, or this is not what we're gonna do. But
Yeah,
being-
that healthy bank to work.
Yeah,
too.
yeah, and being a consultant and being a city council member, it doesn't always work so well, I've learned. I wish I'd have known what I know now when I was the region director, but there's plans for everything, but it's just a financial gap. And the way things get pushed is by business and people. Until businesses and people start pushing it, cities don't move as fast, right? It's gotta be a pretty heavy outcry or a business outcry to make things move in communities.
for sure.
And then, like, we have in Greeley, I mean, I don't know much about Fort Collins politics, I know a little bit, but in Greeley, we have 20% of no-growthers and 80% of people saying, let's fix it, let's do what's right, let's not keep doing the minimum. So it's like hard, right? And each community's got a little different flavor. Loveland's different than Fort Collins and Greeley. So it's trying to figure out how to move these projects and work with the constituents that Gina and Heather are gonna have to do to find out the best solutions and how do we move it forward. Has to be a priority. And one of the things that Heather's worried about, can I say this?
Go for it.
You already started.
One of the things that Heather's worried about is that the North Front Range and Fort Collins and constituents don't make this a priority. How do we make it a priority? And I sit on the North Front Range and it's a priority to me from a regional perspective because it's part of the connectivity for the entire northern Colorado and eastern, moving, hearing what Mike's saying is going east, right? Mark, going east. But also, we gotta make it a priority for businesses. I'm on the NCLA too, and they make this is still their number one priority. But how do we keep it as a priority so it gets funded? How do we keep it as a priority that everybody in this room and everybody on the North Front Range board wants to keep it priority. That's Heathersphere, as it drops off since there's been so much done on 25. Does this just fall off? Because the next one's Wellington. I mean, Wellington's right north and it's growing north. So
State Highway 1.
it's just gonna continue to get worse out here with the growth in northern Colorado. And northern Colorado growth is not gonna stop.
No.
Timna's growth is really slowed down.
Yes.
No.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but it's just the growth in this area is just gonna continue. It's not gonna stop. People wanna be in northern Colorado. But you gotta keep it a priority because you don't wanna get so far behind that 20 years down the road, there's a plan on the shelf and then all of a sudden it's an emergency and it's even worse. So that's one of my commitments to Gina and Heather is to try to help tell the story why it needs to be important. Because it is a lot of money.
Well, the way I'm kind of thinking about it is, we're having the same issue with Spaghetti Junction, right? It's one of those interchanges that's confusing, that there's really not a high accident rate there. But if we can maybe shift the priority from Spaghetti Junction, which is on our 10-year plan, shift it over to this interchange, I don't know, I'm just throwing it out. It's an NFR call.
So I'm Evans, but I live in Fort Collins. I drive this every day. And I drive both of them every day. And this one has so much more traffic and so much more chances of interaction, good and bad, than Spaghetti Junction is small potatoes. Yes, but then you gotta look back at Spaghetti Junction from a structural standpoint is probably beginning to have more issues than this.
Yeah, it is VE eligible, so that's good. So we can get those funds for it, but I know we're making sub improvements right now, just for signing.
Signing, striping, that kind of stuff.
It's not gonna, I don't think we'll ever have enough money to redo that entire interchange. It's just.
The cost benefit of this, I think we look at crash reduction and the actual like user, just.
Even all the
nerd data.
multimodal components
You could make the
of
case
this
for
project.
Yeah.
And
So if I was to take my hat on and off, put my city council hat on, Spaghetti Junction's not a priority for me. 35th, 47th, 17. When I look at 34, 3, County Road 3, the connection to I-25, County Road 13, 34's got major issues more than Spaghetti Junction. Spaghetti Junction needs a couple little things done. A ramp to 85, so you don't have to go down through the bottom. There's small things that can be done on Spaghetti Junction that does not need to be a full-blown redo.
Well, and this is all really great information when we get into our 10-year plan update for Upper Front Range, because they have funds committed to Spaghetti Junction. It's clearly a priority for them. Maybe it's not anymore. Maybe 14 will rise above. It's not, that interchange is not their area.
Right.
However, their area connects to 14, and I know Commissioner Ross is highly invested in making safety improvements along 14. There has been conversation about trying to get maybe a line item for State Highway 14 corridor improvements on there, because we are doing that safety study. But I feel that from an NFR perspective, if you and Upper Front Range worked together to have aligned priorities, which I know you will, because we got Johnny Olson on our side, that's how we do allocations on the 10-year plan, is we look to NFR, we understand what their priorities are, they're doing their 10-year tier 1 list of projects, we do the same thing with NFR with their rural RTP, and that's how we try to make our decisions. Sometimes we have roadways that are in such poor condition that those have to be the priority that maybe locals wouldn't agree with, but we want consensus. So if the consensus is, this is more of a priority, we just need to hear that.
And that's what I think we have to convey, you guys have to convey, right? Because at the end of the day, when projects come in, the TAC reviews them before, and then you go talk to your council members and say, we agree with the project list, or no, we don't agree with the project list, whatever. You guys can influence your electeds that sit on the board for NFR to say, hey, and you guys are the experts in the room. A lot of folks on that North Front Range, they don't have the expertise you guys have. So they look to you, right?
Are you guys presenting to council on this?
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, but we're going to meet with the town manager first,
City manager.
city manager. Spencer just emailed us about that, actually. So we'll meet internally first, I guess,
Oh, yeah.
and then we'll go.
We're gonna present to City of Fort Collins Council. We're gonna present to the North Front Range Council. And then probably some individual stakeholders
And
I think
outside.
City of Fort Collins Council, it sounds like we probably can't get on until January is what they were saying.
And when you do that, are you gonna bring a little bit more data to the table as far as like cost benefit, fatality?
We won't have that.
Okay, not yet?
No, this is the first outreach, just to
Okay.
get your guys' feedback of what's important, the questions that Gina and I were supposed to ask.
We're supposed to, yeah.
We are, we've done it, we got through them all. I got a sheet for you, but I didn't get it to you.
I've been writing it.
But
Do you
we,
have a
we've been through
safety
most of it.
assessment? Or you've done a crash analysis.
Yeah, there's
Like-
a crash analysis done.
So prior to this, before we went out to RFP, it felt like there was a traffic study, a true traffic study done out here. That was not the case. There was just kind of bits and pieces. And this project, actually, we are doing a full traffic analysis, a true study of the area.
So for October 30th, we have all the data, we've had it counted, recounted, from Timberline all the way to 5. We counted it, all that whole thing, and they've looked at and already got the existing model built. We're working on a no build, so like, let's say nothing gets done between now and 2050. What does this look like? That's how we start value planning is, if we do nothing for floodplain and we do nothing for traffic and we do nothing for peds and we do nothing in 2050, we have to start at the no build, right? So then we can start coming in and putting options on the table of what we could do, even if it's phased options. And then we can run the cost benefit analysis of what are the impacts if we do this versus a no build. And then we can start analyzing the cost benefit analysis for all of our goals.
I think it's also really important when you guys do present to council, you highlight the,
Which council the
the
All right.
disadvantaged communities that will benefit from this.
Oh, we have a good map of that,
Okay,
but bring it up.
Yeah, one of the things,
Hit on that.
one of the narrative, the narrative, we should have the full narrative done by October 30th, but the narrative that we put together, it highlights all the things we're talking about, pedestrians, disproportionately impacted communities. We're using the index from North Front Range.
Okay.
Is a lot of what
I
we're
just feel
using.
like when you're at that level of council, and you know this better than me, I feel like pulling at the heartstrings on more of the people side of it versus this project's gonna make everything so much more efficient.
Yeah,
Hit on the safety benefits, how many fatalities, go over the history of
yeah,
fatalities.
safety's huge,
Yeah.
connection of people, connecting
Disadvantaged
community.
communities.
And then also, it's a huge truck route. So we gotta, that's another,
Because of the dump, right?
no,
Do you guys
no,
get a
just
lot,
in general, it's
Just
kind
in
of your shot to 287.
do you
So-
guys get a lot of garbage, I don't know what to call them, garbage?
Garbage trucks?
on 14, you do. But
But not going,
one of the issues on this
That's more-
interchanges
More
is when I-25 closes, this is the detour route to 80,
Yes.
okay,
through 14, through up to 87.
okay,
So there's been, back in the day, we've seen 700 trucks platooning through there
because it has.
at one time.
Yeah, and another big thing is there's a port of I-25,
Mm-hmm.
but there's not if you take 287.
Yeah. Cheating the system.
There's one in Wyoming, but not in Colorado.
Yeah.
The one in Wyoming.
So, so if you keep going up by 25, you'll hit the port, but if you take 287 or 85, you can avoid it.
Yeah.
What does that?
No one does that, though.
Not Canyon.
No one uses Al Canyon anymore since it's been fully picked up. No, but the story's gotta weave in, and we all know, I mean, today's environment, you gotta weave in certain things to a story in order to make a grant work, right? There's the administration, the federal government has certain points you gotta hit. If you don't meet those points, then you're not gonna make it. So we're trying to write the narrative where it fits those.
Yeah.
Fort Collins, Lerner County, sort of that kind of Front Range greenhouse gas. We gotta meet all those goals or we just won't get this funded at all. So that's what the narrative will have.
I think this location authentically has all of those things, and you will be bettering those things,
Yeah.
the pieces. the safety
It's
pieces.
Pete Buttigieg's number one thing is the highways divide communities. Well, this divides a community. There's really no pedestrian,
There is
no way to get from east to west without walking across
grant.
active traffic right now.
$70. Have you guys looked into that grant, reconnecting communities? Because you might be able to get study, I
It's
don't
on,
know,
it's on our list.
I don't know if there's study dollars in there, but you might be able to get some funds for that.
And then it's on
I
our
was about to
list.
say, we've started creating a spreadsheet
Okay.
of grants.
We have like 15 different grants
Yeah.
and 10 different CDOT grants coming out.
RCE's been a challenge because if the roads were there first, then RC is not typically eligible or as eligible. If it widened over time and further divided the community, then it can be RCE eligible. But it's typically where you had communities where the interstate came last and, broke up the neighborhood. Those are the most eligible for RCE.
Does it, so now in this scenario where Fort Collins is coming in and annexing later on, does that apply? Or maybe not?
I don't handle
I
that.
don't-
So- No, okay. I was about to say, because the road's there, so.
Timnip is planning to reach out to Fort Collins, the TK and those guys, because we're doing our trails plan too, and one of the connections might be up here, so we're planning to update, so if you guys figure out where it actually needs to go, we're in the process of updating our plan too, so.
Okay.
Future owns process, we can all come together. Our coast master plan, parks, our trails plan. We're figuring out where our trails go, but we're gonna ask Fort Collins where we want to put it. Because we recognize our neighbors are further ahead.
You guys are new growing.
Master plan and safety plan too.
That's
How
what
to incorporate
Master.
some of this into that.
Tell us where
That
God
would
certainly help connect us there.
Absolutely.
Was there anything else? I don't want to take too much of your time. I mean, I think we've got some good information. And we will come back. Do you guys like in person or do you want us to be, I think being here is probably the key to more.
We're all
impact.
usually here. You can come back.
You come back.
We're here.
You're not gonna kick me out yet? Okay.
When,
Bring cheese
when,
next.
so they're updating their safety action plan and transportation master plan. When, what's the timeline on that?
It'll be probably early next spring.
Yeah, if you guys, if you need anything from us or anything to help in that for support, just let us know.
Yeah, Pete is a great contact if you need something from the consultant side, if you need data. And then we have to help and we'd love to see what you guys are drafting when you come up with it so we can make sure that it's part of the overall picture, not just a secondary thought.
I think Spencer's been in communication with you on most of our plans, like the East Mulberry plan, but if are there other, or do you feel like you need more access to the information over Spencer being able to contact her?
Would Spencer be in contact? We just kind of had that meeting this week and now he's starting to be more proactive, but.
I'll get with him and make sure that we are funneling all the correct information to you for the interchange as far as the strategic trails plan, the East Mulberry plan, and some of the others.
That would be excellent.
Getting Tyler with the,
Yeah.
good, Tyler.
Tyler's
saying traffic
for
in
the
there.
traffic.
Yeah,
We have been talking to Tyler.
Gina asked him asked him yesterday, who is my point of contact?
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll touch base with him.
Well, obviously transport's important for this too.
So the answer depends on what you're looking for.
Spencer's a good contact because he works primarily with engineering in interfacing with transport, so I think
Okay.
you've got the best contact.
Okay.
And then we'll get on the North Front Range presentation sometime in the near future. Well, not we, because I will be on the other side, it will be somebody else. I'll have to be quiet. Just my support of the importance of the project. Well, thank you. And if anything comes, if you think of anything, just email me or Gina. I got some cards here. And then if like something comes to mind that you think about after you've walked out the door, I'll leave some cards here on the table. Just email me or Gina and we'll make sure we get it in the list.
Be vocal during the 10-year plan update process, all of you.
Well, it'll be a different vocalization for me at that point.
We're not gonna tell Johnny when the meetings are. Just kidding. Here, I can fix that too.
I have a question for you.
All right, thank you guys, appreciate it.
Well, thank you for allowing us.
All right, we're gonna step back on the agenda and go back to regional air quality updates. Tom, you're on.
Good afternoon. I'm not loving this software. So let's see if you can see that, okay?
Yeah, we can see it.
You guys hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Well, I got on about 110 finally after conquering the software, but you guys had wisely moved on without me. So I just have a few slides just to do a little update on where we are with the ozone data and the planning. So the first thing to talk about is just to try and find something, to chuckle about here. We had a rough summer. As you all are probably aware, we had over 40 days with violations of one or both ozone standards. So this is what the Denver Post did with that. Not making our job any easier as when we have these kind of summers. We had both smoke caused or smoke influenced high ozone, and then we had really hot, dry weather, as you all know from living through it, where we had a lot of local ozone formed that way too. So this continues to be a challenge for us. Here's a data table that goes through the sites, and the data point we look at is the fourth highest value at each site each year, and then in this case it's calculated a 3-year average. That's how it's judged over on the right hand column. So as you can see, all those values are over the 70 part per billion standard on the 3-year average. And, a number of them, at least a few or 4 are over the 75 part per billion standard. So it's a tough situation both this year and kind of the longer term average over the past 3 years.
Hey, Tom, can you make your screen full, please? We see the slideshow. Can you just make the screen full?
Oh, I see the problem.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem. Give me just a second here. Is that better? No. All right, hang on just a second. Is that better? Is that better?
It's still the same, Tom.
Okay, well.
Is there a way for us to just focus on the content and not have the people for our view?
If there is a way, we have not found it yet.
How about now?
Yeah, now you're showing the participants in the call.
I'm sorry, just what?
So we're not seeing the slideshow.
Well, I'm about to give up. This has been hard work to do this. Okay, third time the charm? No?
Perfect,
Looks good.
perfect.
Okay, great. All right, so there's the cartoon. This is the one I just talked through here with the 2024 values highlighted. You can see they're all quite a bit higher than the standards of 70 and 75. And then the design values, kind of the long-term trend over there on the right, are also pretty high. We actually pulled this out for the board earlier this month to illustrate something here. This is the 15 highest values at each site. So there are a couple of things I want to emphasize, that we have many sites where there are just, repeatedly high ozone days. So it doesn't really matter how many few days we could, excuse as being smoke influenced. There's just a lot of days when, in this particular summer, and it's kind of grouped into the sites in the southeast, the southwest, the northwest, and the northeast. So you all may recognize sites up in the North Front Range region. Just illustrates kind of how far we have to go with some of the sites that even at the 15th highest value are still over 70. There's a couple that are shown, Evergreen and Blackhawk, that are, west of the non-attainment area, but again, those are also in many cases still showing high ozone. So it's even a bigger regional problem. There were exceedances of the ozone standard in Manitou Springs and Colorado Springs as well this summer. Maybe somewhat of more interest is there are some new sites in the North Front Range, Fossil Creek, the Blue Star, Tinmouth with the Blue Star, and what's called LaSalle Tower out in Weld County. So there is some additional monitoring that's going on. Those are not, full summers. They started, during this ozone season. So we have a little better coverage, but, it's a very deep problem in terms of more day in and day out. So we also put together this graph, and these are the number of days that are over the standards. And this just illustrates how important it is to begin really further cutting emissions. And some of the emissions problems are caused by growth, but the gray bars are the number of days in each year where there's an exceedance of the 70 part per billion standard. And we took the liberty of going all the way back to 1995 because we have the data. And then we also have the days over 75, the orangish bars, and again from 1995. And if you fit a regression line through those, the number of days that exceed 70 and 75 respectively have barely changed. So this is a problem that, again, we think is associated with growth. And even though the sources have changed some, we still are driving millions of miles, per the discussion that I listened to earlier about expanding the Mulberry interchange. But we've only gone from 42 days a year exceeding the 70 standard to maybe 38 if you kind of draw a straight line through there. A lot of year-to-year variation, but just a very significant problem. And, we don't set the standards. We just kind of have to help figure out the solutions. And, in theory, we getting these down to just 2 or 3 days a year so that the fourth highest value, would be over the standard. So we have to do a specific planning, kind of an accounting process. This is from the Clean Air Act. So in 2025, we will have a plan that addresses the 2015, the 70 part per billion standard. And we work closely with the Air Pollution Control Division to develop these chapters. These are chapters that have previously been, written in earlier versions of the plans, but they all get updated and reflect, current information. So the monitor data, the kind of information I just showed, would be updated. What the trend in emission inventories are, how motor vehicle inspection and maintenance is changing. We're going to, re-estimate 2026, only 2 years from now. And then we have to provide an attainment demonstration. It's a modeling exercise. And then we catalog all the related programs that are reducing emissions, and that's what we call the weight of evidence. So this is the schedule we're going to go through with our board that involves, officials from Weld and Larimer County, among others. We have almost 30 people on our board. So it's a diverse group. We have to walk through all these topic areas that are in the form of a chapter. And then finally, this is the kind of big picture long-term schedule. There'll be after our board does that review I just described, then the Air Quality Control Commission will meet in the middle of July. And that's when we and the Air Pollution Control Division will request that they hold a rulemaking for the ozone attainment plan. And that's when we would also be bringing forward, new control measures or reduction programs that would be attached to or part of the plan. So that's a notice kind of activity where you have to have all your ducks lined up, say, here's what we're going to ask you to consider. And then there's a process to hear that and work back and forth with interested parties on what the findings would be. And then on November 20 and 21, the Air Quality Control Commission would act on that plan after it's been publicly reviewed. So that's what we're up against here. We've got poor air quality, particularly this summer, and we've got a lot of documentation to do. So we'll be working on this and be happy to provide updates on this as we progress here through the rest of this year and the next year. So that was my hopefully quick overview, and thanks for your patience with me getting on the meeting. Be glad to answer your questions.
Thanks, Tom. Any questions for Tom, either in the room or online? Looks like none. We're all good.
Well, it was perfectly clear. It's good to know. So. And I did send this slide deck. Thanks, Phil. I sent this slide deck to Becky. I guess she's out of the office today, but it's at the North Front Range at this point. So, okay, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Is anyone else? Mark?
Thank you. So today I just wanted to provide an update on what has happened since we met last month, and then also discuss next steps in the process for the call. So in terms of what I want to talk about today, I'm just going to go over the schedule, the meeting schedule, provide an overview of the applicant workshop that was held, talk briefly about the project descriptions we received as part of the call, and then, like I said, talk about next steps in the process, and then allow questions after I complete the presentation. So in terms of the schedule, council did take action on the process at the October 3rd meeting. They did approve the process at the guidelines. The call for project opened on Friday the 4th. The applicant workshop was held on the 7th. And then this past Friday, the project descriptions were due to us. I'll note further on about the NPO feedback. And then looking forward, the draft project applications will be due on the 25th. And then the call will close then on the 15th. In terms of the workshop, essentially it was broken down into kind of 4 focus areas. First was just a general overview. This is where we talked about the council approval of the process. We went through the guidelines document as well as the schedule. In terms of applicant materials, we went through the individual applications and worksheets, so the project description, the application, as well as the equity analysis worksheet. And then we also provided an example using the project from the 2022 call. And we went through that to show as an example of what the process would look like as you're filling out your application. We then went into online resources. So I showed the Call for Projects website on our website. There's a Call for Projects hub. Essentially, it's in a sense, a GIS hub, but it has various other information on it for the call, including a recording of the workshop if you weren't able to attend and you wanted to tune into that, either because you just wanted to watch a portion of it again, or if you didn't get a chance to look at it. And include other data as well as you're putting together your application. And then the last part of that portion of the workshop talked about the Call for Projects data tool map. So it essentially went through the tool, providing an example of the kind of data that you can get as you see how your project compares with corridors or equity areas or kind of whatever specific kind of data you're looking at doing for that. And then the workshop concluded with an open discussion and questions. It was rather a quiet crowd, so there weren't very many questions. With that being said, we did have 15 participants online, which I thought was good. And then we had a couple folks come in person. So we had a good turnout for that. In terms of what we received with project descriptions, we received 16 descriptions. They included fixed route and on-demand transit projects, bicycle and pedestrian projects, as well as multimodal transportation studies. They included 9 sponsor agencies who submitted those projects. And then, like I said, NPO staff reviewed those descriptions and provided feedback. So all the descriptions did receive comments back. Some didn't have any issues with their applications, and some did, so it kind of varied, but staff has provided comment on that.
Do you have the breakout as far as what's like a transit project versus maybe a capital project or planning? Do we have a breakout of those 16 descriptions?
I could, I don't have that right here right now, but I'll share that with you if you'd like. So in terms of next steps, like I noted, the draft applications are due to us on the 25th. All of this should look essentially familiar to you because it's in the guidelines document, but it needs to include a completed application, project location map, equity analysis worksheet, detailed cost estimate per unit by phase. One other thing, as far as project prioritization, which I can't say the word for some reason, if in a situation where member government submits more than one project per category, they need to prioritize those projects. There are a few instances of that with the descriptions I received, so something to keep in mind. And then the sustainable funding plan for any transit-related projects. And just to reiterate too what CDOT said, when you're putting together your draft application, try to make it as complete and as final as possible. Just make it easier for them. A couple things I wasn't sure about the timing of that, but potentially if it's feasible to have it done would be the letter of support. That's kind of a CDOT thing, I don't know.
That can wait for your final.
Okay.
Basically for the draft application, Bryce Rees is the one for Region 4. We also have DTR staff and DTD staff. That's why I was asking about the category of how many, because I want to prepare them of what to expect. There's several calls going around throughout the state. So, however, when it comes to the draft application, treating it as a final, if you don't, there's a really good chance there's gonna be things that we could have caught when you submit your final application. And we wanna make sure that we're doing everything in our first review to make it so your application is as strong as possible.
Thanks, Josie. Another part of the process coming up is the scoring committee. Just again, this is not new information, but just so you're aware, for anyone that did apply, there needs to be one representative from your committee on the scoring committee. Voting members on that committee include member local governments, and each local government gets one member vote. With that being said, multiple staff may contribute to the scoring of the project types. And then non-voting members include NPO staff as well as other agencies. Okay, and then the one piece that I want to bring up now, just so since we're meeting now, is if you're interested in being on the scoring committee, please contact our email address by next Friday, just so that as materials go out, you're informed of all that information. So please let me know a week from Friday if you're interested in being on the scoring committee. Anyone can be on the committee, as I said. There's just the rules as far as the number of votes and such. So
how does that work with the scoring? Like, what is the, if you take in, let's say, not that we would do this, we have 10 people from Loveland say they wanted to be on the scoring committee, they all score all the projects, and then do we take an action?
You kind of,
Not that we would
my understanding, you know, I'm relatively new to this process, my understanding is then you have to, as a group, decide
what our score
what's it's gonna look like, yeah. Does that sound correct? I know Jerome's kind of the only one that's even around when the last call was done, does that sound correct?
Right.
Yes, if I recall correctly, each agency would submit one score, so multiple people score, just that could be the average, or however you all want to determine which score gets submitted.
So with that, that concludes my presentation. Be happy to take any other questions. As I mentioned a few times, if you want to reach out by email, please email our planning@NFRMPO or email address for any MMOF requests. Just in the event for some reason I'm out of the office for some reason, that at least some staff can respond to your question. So
the town administrator requirement or letter from council, what's the purpose of that? It just ensuring.
it just shows that there's municipal support, jurisdictional support.
If we have like a budget that would have funding, or we're pulling that with an approved budget that we have, where we're pulling the match for that from, would that be sufficient? If the council has approved the budget, where we can identify where that money's coming from?
So when we go after money, we have to get blessing from our council anyway, so we have either a resolution or an ordinance, I was.
Right, I think a formal
And so
letter.
that's the formality of it.
Okay. Just curious.
One other thing I forgot to mention, because it wasn't in the presentation, but I want to know too, is there's been only one instance where someone's requested a reduced match rate. And so the way the process, just so you know, the way the process works is that they need to then provide us with a letter justifying their request for the reduction. So anyone in that situation would have to provide that as part of the application process early on, just so that we can, moving forward, have that amongst the documentation.
So you said you had one instance, and they provide you a letter, or you have?
They will, as part of the application.
Can we all get a copy of it? See what they said? It's probably public.
Yeah. So, yeah, unless anyone has any questions, that's.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Moving on, outside partner reports, local bike and ped handout. Regional transit agencies, a verbal report, is somebody online? Not
Josh was online earlier.
Hi, sorry. Did you need me for something?
Did you have, we're, under regional transit agencies, we have written down verbal report. Is anybody reporting on that from any of the respective regional transit agencies? Nope.
Not from us.
Okay, cool, thank you. Remainder of these are all written reports that they included in your handout.
Corey is on my mobility.
Oh, Corey, okay. Corey, you got the stage.
I don't have any updates to share today.
Yeah, thank you, sir. All right. We have, written meeting wrap up. Do we have any final public comments? Well, that's a start, isn't it? Round table, we'll go to my left here, Mr. Lamar, you start.
As you're on your way in, you probably saw that we finished our 11th Street multimodal project. Some minor striping issues that are coming in. So we might get that fixed, we'll see. Other than that, that's what I got.
Thank you.
For Laramie County, as part of our transportation master plan, I'll be doing, we'd like to be doing one-on-one sit-downs with each community. So I'll be sending out an email, probably early next week, trying to schedule that. So, before we meet with you all.
I don't have anything.
I covered my update.
In your packet, there's an inactive projects report that Dee put together, so thank you so much, Dee. It takes a lot of time. We work with our local agency, resident engineers, they comment on it. If your project is in red, it means you have not billed in time. Please bill in time. Pay attention to your inactive, your FHWA end date. We have a few on here that are approaching, but also a few that are expired. Just
Josie,
do a good job.
Can I extend mine? Because I'm still waiting on,
Has it expired?
it's got like 15 days.
Send Bryce an email
Okay.
as soon as possible, as long as it hasn't expired, that's when it gets really challenging. To extend it before it's expired, I hear is not as difficult. So send him an email today if you can, or whoever your local agency resident, engineer, PM, whatever.
I'll CC Bryce, he knows all.
Yes, he certainly does. We don't function without him. That was all I had though.
Thank you.
Thank you. TAC 34 is moving right along. We're switching to the closure on the north side of TAC this weekend. That closure started and we'll be reopening the south side of TAC any day now. So it's all paved, they're striping and getting everything wrapped up. So it's moving.
I want to go see that.
That's exciting. It's so great to see it when it's all
Just come
done.
in
Right
from-
now, it's a real.
Come in from the south and then north.
Just go on 34 and look both ways. It's cool to see it. We have videos on the website too, but yeah, it's been good and moving and hopefully we get wrapped up before snow flies. So we'll just hold on to warmer weather as long as we can.
No updates for calls.
Timnath Parkway from 4th Street north to West Grove will probably be open within the next month, and the rest of it after Omar gives us some signals next year. So we do need some railroad signals, so we were so close.
So a few updates, the active transportation survey closed on September 27th, and we ended with, let's see if I can remember this number off the top of my head, 263 responses.
Wow.
Which is more than I was anticipating, so I'm very happy with that. So we're in the process of analyzing that data and seeing really what the results were, especially the others and the more open-ended questions. I still need to look through that. And then we are in the process for ROTC visioning. I've already met with a few communities, I have a few more to go this week. And that'll be going out through Thanksgiving. So there are still a few communities that I need to get in touch with to schedule something. But most communities, those meetings have been scheduled, and I do look forward to meeting with you all and whoever else will be attending those meetings to push the ROTC visioning process along.
Thank you. So I'm happy to report that 37th Street, Phase 2A is paved, striped, and open for traffic. We're gonna have to put some signage up. We're gonna hold off on the landscaping till next year. Because our non-potable irrigation, we don't want to freeze it, so we're gonna get all that done next year. And then we'll be moving into Phase 2B of that project right away into 2025. The other thing I wanted to bring up is starting a discussion with some friends at Greeley and other communities, and if anybody's interested, we have a meeting on Friday to talk about digital project delivery. I think I sent it to Brad, but somebody said I should send the invitation to you.
Got it.
Okay.
Thank you.
And anybody else who's interested, it's Friday for a couple of hours. It's just a virtual meeting. And it's basically talking digital delivery from planning to design to construction into asset management, using the tools and software that are out there to help with projects. Greeley just did a small project, and we went to a presentation over at CSU in construction management, and Trimble was there, HDR was there, and they're pushing it on their end, because they're working with a lot of different departments of transportation to do this. And they're doing it at the Department of Transportation level, but I want to bring it down to the community level and really help us all, help us with regional planning, because if we can all share data, projects, and delivery methods and improve things, because the better we know, the more we know, the less risk, the less cost, the better benefit. So it's happening Friday, it's just starting. We're gonna see what happens with it and what it snowballs into, but I'm thinking it's gonna be kind of cool. And that's all I got. So I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you all for attending.